Hello, and welcome to today's video. This is another really exciting one, a quarterly check-in, if you will. This is my quarter 3 reading statistics. I know that I'm not sat very centred right now. It doesn't matter because I'll be moving to the side in a minute anyway. But I'm just going to take a picture of this cat, which is like, normally I move everything out from in front of the bookcases before, but he's so happy in this little bed. So yeah, enjoy. This is me. And also ignore that I'm wearing my big comfy trousers because normally you can't see that, but you can in this picture. But yeah, this is a really exciting one. I am really, happy to be doing this. I love doing these quarterly check-ins, kind of seeing what my reading looks like for the last quarter. And today we're doing quarter 3. So this will encompass the months of July, August and September. And I have all of my statistics in front of me. I've got them in my reading journal here. Yes, stuff has just dropped out my reading journal here. But yeah, I've got them in front. What we'll do is I'll move over to the side and you will be able to see it up on the screen. So I'll go through all of the actual reading statistics, so the books that I read, what they mean, and then I will go through my book purchasing statistics, and then we'll do a quick little check-in on the anticipated releases and a check-in of the best and the worst of the quarter, because I think that's quite fun to do. So yeah, that is the plan. Hopefully it works. Hopefully it's a good time. Let's just get into it. During quarter 3, I read a total of 48 books, which I'm actually really happy with. I don't really know how that compares to other quarters. It looks like in quarter 2 I read 51 total, and in quarter 1 I read 54 total. So it's actually the lowest of this year so far, but that's fine, that's okay. If you want to have a look, you can see it spread out between July, August and September. Over to the side, I will move over now. So yeah, you can see that spread out there, and you can see that I've read a lot more in September than I did July and August. But even July and August were really, really good reading months. Like 14 is above average for me. So yeah, really happy overall. Those books convert into 16,064 pages. And again, if we look at it comparing months, it's quite interesting to look at actually, because even though July and August were both 14 books, July was 1,000 more pages than August. So yeah, really interesting there. I think it's quite cool to see spread over the months. And then last but not least, in terms of these graphs, let's have a quick look at average rating. So on average, I rated books 3.3958, and spread over July, August and September, you can see quite a bit of variation, with September being the lowest, which is why even though September I read so many books, I actually don't see it as that great of a reading month because I read books that I didn't enjoy. If you see my September wrap up, you will understand that I had a weird dip in the middle of the month where I read like 9 books that were kind of related to each other that I didn't enjoy any of, and I don't know why I kept reading. But things happen. Let's also pop in here, as we've just done average rating, let's pop in my star rating. So you can see here every star rating that I've given. There is a lot of 4 stars there. Unfortunately, we had 1 1-star and 1 1.5 star. But I think most unfortunate is that we only got 2 5-stars in the entirety of the quarter, which, yeah, doesn't feel great. In terms of reading method, I read 9 books via ebook, 15 books mixed, 18 books via audio and 6 books physically. And this is quite surprising for me because I think I always expect physical reading or mixed reading to be the highest. It's been a weird quarter, I think especially with what my goals are this year, I should have been reading the majority of these books physically. So I think seeing physical books being so low at only 6 shows you how bad my goals for the year are going as well, or at least went in this quarter. In terms of rereads, I actually had 5 rereads this quarter, which I can think of 2. I don't know what the other 3 are, but doesn't really matter, I guess. I must have enjoyed it to reread it. And 43 books I read for the first time. In terms of series versus standalone, I only read 9 books that were standalones, which is the light purple colour you can see on this graph. The rest of these colours are all series, and basically the dark purple is finishing series, that is last book in series, blue is continuing series, and green is starting a series. So yeah, majority of ways that I read was series, but they are split up into whether I was starting, finishing or continuing. And then if we look at book format, we'll see that the large majority were novels. So just, you know, your normally written book. We do have a lot of other formats that I read just 1 or 2 books in, which are novellas, essays, graphic novels, poems, non-fiction, plays and short stories. So we do have, you know, that's probably a fifth of the graph that's made up of other stuff, but it is all just 1 or 2. Okay, and then let's look at genre, because I think this is where it looks really interesting and kind of more back to normal. I feel like my reading, at least in terms of genres, has been quite over the place this year, but this looks slightly more back to normal. At least the 3 biggest chunks are the 3 biggest chunks that I'd expect. So we have majority fantasy romance. I'd expect that to be second normally, but it's first this time. After that, we are followed by fantasy, which I'd normally expect to be first, and it's second this time. And then following that, we have sci-fi at 4, which I would expect to be third, but I wouldn't expect to be so far behind the others. And then in terms of other genres read, 3 books were paranormal, 2 books of mystery, 2 books of romance, 2 books of non-fiction, 2 books of poetry, and then everything left, I only read 1 book in that genre, and that is dark academia, horror, adventure, contemporary, memoir, classic and magical realism. So yeah, a large variety of genres. I do love reading a bit of everything, and I'm really happy with kind of like the genre spread, I guess. Like, it feels more right for me. Whilst we are here, let's look at book length. So book length, you can see the graph here. Not many long books. I don't read that many books over like 600, 700 pages anyway, but there are normally 1 or 2. And I am quite surprised at how many shorter books there are. I did read a couple of series where all the books were quite short, and that's what I disliked about the series, but for some reason I kept on reading them, even though they weren't really doing it or there for me. So, you know, I brought this on myself. I do think I could have had a much better time reading a big long book than doing that series, but again, September was a weird month. So yeah, that's how the book lengths look. In terms of age category, the vast majority of books that I read were adult. This is over 50%, but strangely followed by young adult. Young adult had 11 books this quarter, which, I mean, I still read some young adult, but it's not normally such big of a chunk. And then new adult was down to only 8, which, you know, that would normally be bigger than young adults. That's quite interesting to look at. And then 1 middle grade book, which normally when I go out my way to read a middle grade, it's because like I absolutely love it. I do think that there is still value in middle grade for everyone. For me personally, I know what I'm looking for, and unfortunately this one wasn't it for me. It got quite a low rating, so that's the first time I've had a synopsis of a middle grade and had something I thought I was really going to enjoy in that age category and not. So yeah, a bit disappointing. In terms of how I got the book, the 2 big green chunks are owned 2025 and owned. So the bright green is owned 2025 and the darker green is just owned. So I owned the book previous to this year. 15 books I owned and 14 I've owned from this year. And then there's a lot of other random ways that I've got books as well. So whether I've had it from Jay, my partner, Kindle, Spotify, the library, I've borrowed it some other way, Audible, Kindle Unlimited and ARCs. So like very, very approximately, it's about a third owned, a third owned 2025 and a third the rest, but it's actually a bit more of the rest. But yeah, you know, I'm not mad at this. I would like to read more books that I've owned. I am really trying to get that TBR down, but you know, life. Okay, so moving on now. This isn't necessarily about the books. Well, some of it's about the books, but it's about representation and then also author information. So yeah, let's group these all together. In terms of LGBTQIA plus rep, 25 books had representation and 23 didn't. So not the best. I'd like this to be higher. Again, I feel like I've spoken about this every single quarter check-in, so I do sound a bit like a broken horse. Broken horse? Is that the saying? I don't know. Doesn't matter. Well, I sound like, you know, I've gone on about this. But basically, I'm really struggling to find the majority of books reading having representation, but also wanting to get books off my TBR that I've owned like 5, 6, 7 years. So yeah, it's an interesting one. In terms of disability rep, 15 of the books that I read had disability rep and 33 did not. Again, this is something that I think the quicker that books kind of like go through the process of being on my TBR, like a faster turnover time of getting books in to reading them, I think this will increase. But right now, you know, unfortunately, it's not as high as I'd like it. In terms of BIPOC authors, 10 were, 26 were not. There were 2 that was not available, and it basically just meant like there was multiple authors that wrote in one collection, one book, so it's just not applicable basically to those books. And then 10 unknown, so I really don't know. And like, yeah, all of these, when it comes to authors, if it's in their Goodreads, Instagram or website bios, I include it. If not, we just go straight to unknown or whatever, because it's not for me to dig into. Who the books were written by, we had 39 women, not surprising at all. This is the biggest chunk. It always is quite a big chunk. Followed by multiple authors at 5 books, 3 books by men and 1 book by a non-binary person. I'd like there to be more range in this, but I also know what I like. In terms of nationality, we have a lot of nationalities here. So we've got Australian, British, American, Canadian, New Zealand, 3 where it's not available, Iranian, British Indian, 11 unknown, and 1 Japanese. So again, the not available is where it's been multiple authors and they're from different places, and the unknown is where it just doesn't say. And then last but not least, in terms of this section, new authors. So 11 authors I read for the first time, 35 authors I read from before, but obviously if I read book 1 of a series and it's an author I've never read from before, that's never read from before. But then when I read books 2, 3, 4, 5, I've read from them before. So like that's kind of why it's such a big difference. And then not available again is those collections where there were multiple authors writing in them and they don't fit into one box or the other. So those were all of the main statistics. I don't really have much to say about them. Like, I'm interested in them. I think they're pretty cool. And I overall feel pretty positive about them. There is definitely improvement to be made. There's definitely stuff that I would, I guess, like to consider more when I'm picking up books, when I'm buying books that I don't necessarily right now. But overall, feeling pretty positive. I think it's gone pretty well. And I've had a fairly decent reading quarter. So let's talk about books acquired. So these are the books that I have purchased or been given to me in the 3rd quarter of the year. I don't actually know how many this is total. 3 add 6 is 9, add 11, 20. 20, that's a nice number to work with. So I've purchased 20 books total. Here they are, split into the months. So you can see 11 in July, 3 in August, 6 in September. 6 is what I had put myself on, like limit-wise. I definitely thought, like, as long as I'm buying 6 or less books a month, I can, you know, keep making progress in my TBR. So as we can see, July, got a lot more than that, but kind of made up for it in August when I only got 3. So yeah, don't feel dreadful about this, but definitely want to keep a closer eye on it. In terms of whether the books that I purchased were new or used, surprisingly 18 of them were purchased new and only 2 used. This is quite like different for me. I normally purchase the majority of my books used, so yeah, quite a different quarter. And then have I read the books that I have purchased? I've read 9 of them, so I don't think that's too bad at all. 9 out of 20, like it's almost half of them, so I'm pretty happy with that. And those are all of my graphs. Those are all the things that are 2 of the things that I would like to talk to you about. So let's move first of all to anticipated releases. I haven't prepped this, so I'm hoping the numbers are easy enough to figure out. Hi, Edit and Heather here. So basically, I'm about to talk to you loads about how there's 9 anticipated releases that have come out. 2 of these, turns out, have actually been postponed. So 2 of these releases that I'm like including these next few statisticky bits have been postponed until November. I'm going to still show the images of all 9 of them on the screen. However, just know that everything I'm saying is actually at a 7, which makes the amount that I've read much better. So yeah, that's all I really need to say. But yeah, I wasn't aware they'd been postponed. I guess I was curious as to like why I didn't have them, but I don't know. I didn't think it through. They've been postponed, which is why I don't yet physically own them, which explains why I haven't had them on my mind so much, and also explains a bit better why I haven't read as much of my anticipated releases as I would normally expect. So between the months of July and September, we have had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 books come out. So, you know, 9 books are out. And out of those, in the months of July to September, I've read 1, 2, 3. I'm going to have to stick with 3. Technically it's 4, but I didn't read the other book that's in this until the very start of October. So technically 3, but as of right now of recording this, I have read 4 of the 9. So not the best, but 3 of those books didn't come out till the 25th of September. So I only had 5 days. So, you know, I'll take it. I think that's fairly good going. If it wasn't for how late in September 3 of those came out, I think it could need improvement. But honestly, with the 25th of September, you know, like that is like 5-6 days to get that sorted, which not ideal. But yeah, I'm really happy with it. The ones I have read, I guess for this, just to, you know, show it nicely, I will include the 4th one as well. I've rated 1 4.5 stars, the next one 5 stars, the next one 4 stars, and the final one that I only finished a few days ago, 5 stars. So pretty good going in terms of anticipated releases. They've all been very highly rated. So yeah, I think it's going pretty decent. And then last but certainly not least, let's talk about the best and worst books of the quarter. Let's start with the worst so we end the video on a high. So the worst book of the quarter for me was a book called Heroes and Villains. This was pretty dreadful. It got 1 star. It was my only 1 star of the quarter. It was a poetry collection. When I picked this up, I thought it was all going to be by the person who's named on the cover. Turns out they just collated it. And that was not clear. There was like over 100 poems in here, and they were really, really bad. They just weren't enjoyable. They were very repetitive, and it was meant to have this theme, heroes and villains, and it didn't really stick to it. And then there was a lot of poems that were like clearly in like the heroic section that were like very like icky. Yeah, it just really wasn't for me. I really didn't vibe with it. I really didn't like it. I really like poetry, but this was the first time that I had ever read a collection that was by more than one poet. And honestly, I think that's just something I'm going to stay away from. I'm sure that I could find ones that work for me, but this has really put me off. So yeah, definitely the worst book of the quarter. I only have like kind of like negative feelings when I think about it. I can kind of feel myself like, ooh, like shriveling up a bit. So yeah, not the best, but I tried it and I finished it, which normally isn't important, but I had got the arc of this from NetGalley, so I kind of had to. I will say the main draw to me, the reason I requested it from NetGalley, the reason I like went out of my way after my fingers ran out on NetGalley to get it from the library, is because the illustrations were from Chris Riddell, whose illustration style and illustrations I absolutely love. I think those were fantastic, but unfortunately the actual content of the words were not. And then the best, save the best till last, was Human Rights. It has to be Human Rights. This was the 3rd and final book in the HMRC series by Juno Dawson. I say 3rd and final, it was a trilogy, and this is the final. There is also a prequel book that can be read in between books 2 and 3 if you so wish. But yeah, definitely not needed, I don't think. I was very happy. I have read that one, but on a reread, I don't think I'd reread that one, so I'm going to stick with 3rd and final as the way of talking about it. It was fantastic. It was absolutely fantastic. It was 5 stars, and it was such an easy 5 stars. There were points throughout where I'd say up until probably the 2/3 mark, I was like, I'm loving this. There is no way in hell this is getting less than 4 stars, but I knew this was the last book and we were getting closer and closer to the end, and I was like, this is really going to depend on the ending as to how I rate this. Like, is it going to be satisfying? Is it going to conclude everything? Like, what is going to happen? Like, we've got such a short amount of time to figure the rest of this out in. And I knew that it was going to really depend on the ending and how it pulled off everything to be the final mark, I guess. I don't know. It's final rating. And it was 5 stars. I really loved the ending. It was so different to anything I expected, but it worked so well. And it was surprising, but like surprising in a way that once you kept going made so much sense. And yeah, honestly, just perfection. I absolutely loved it. Highly recommend this series. And if you started the series and you like unsure as to whether to continue on, they stay just as amazing. You get to know these characters so much, you are really in this world, and yeah, just absolutely fantastic. Look at modern witchcraft. So those were all of the statistics everything that I thought is kind of important for reflecting on and looking at the end of the third quarter. I do personally, for myself, do like third quarter check-ins when it comes to my goals as well, and I like adapt and change my goals. I haven't included those this year in this video. This has stayed to like just statistics, but if you'd like me to start including those next year, kind of when I sit down and I'm like, right, well, this is the goal, how is it going, is it still likely to finish, do I need to adapt it or change it in any way, do I still care about this goal, do I need to scrap it? If that's something that you'd like me to include in this video, or even in a video of its own, please do let me know, because it is something that I do every quarter anyway. I just don't include it in this video. But yeah, that is it from me. That is everything. Those are all of the statistics. I really hope that you enjoyed it. Please do give it a like if you did like it. Subscribe down below if you want to see more content like this, and hopefully I'll see you next time. Bye.